Hi, everybody. Marcus Schubert here. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing a good friend of mine and a fantastic business partner. His name is Bob Steed out of Utah in the United States. Now, Bob's been involved in research and development for the last 30 years with cutting edge technologies as a research scientist and also manufacturing products in the supplement, nutrition, and personal care space. So, Bob, what I'd like to do is maybe give you a chance to talk a little bit about your background and then what's got you so heavily involved in the CBD space the last 4 or 5 years?
You bet, Marcus. It's a great pleasure to be with you today and have really enjoyed working with you over the years. I think both of us have been really engaged in cutting edge science, and it's exciting to see all of the great ingredients and products that are coming to the market these days. And it's really exciting to be a part of that. I got involved in CBD a number of years ago, and I'll tell you just a quick story. I was hearing a lot about CBD, and really some of the things we were hearing were so outrageous. It was just really hard to believe that even half of it could be true. And of course, early on, there was not a lot of science. There was not a lot of scientific studies, and so we were kind of depending on a lot of anecdotal stories and things that were out there. But I have to tell you, I've got a little dog, and this dog is named Dixie. And Dixie is the sweetest little girl. And Dixie was starting to have a lot of health troubles. And one of the things that was starting to happen is she was starting to develop a lot of a lot of welts on her body. And we took her to the vet. The vet said, look, it's a form of cancer. They're benign tumors, basically, is what they were. And, I had done a lot of research on the CBD, and I thought this would be kind of an interesting study, really, to kind of see, how this goes. Because the one thing I knew is that my dog wouldn't lie to me, right? So either the things that I'd been hearing about CBD were going to be true in terms of what I had read and seen, or they wouldn't. But Dixie, come here, come over here. I've got my dog right here. This is Dixie. Dixie, say hi.
Hi, Dixie.
This is Dixie, and she is, I think she's about 12 years old now, or so, and she's the cutest little dog, and she's just so sweet. But imagine that she was getting these growths that were so big that they were actually impeding her collar. Then they were starting to kind of break and bleed. And I think at one point she had probably about 20 of these on her. Anyway, so we got her pretty heavily onto the CBD. And we just kind of watched and monitored. And I was talking to my family. I was trying to get some feedback as to if there were any noticeable improvements. And I have to tell you that, now this dog, it's remarkable what's happened, actually. And it really was kind of a testament to me that there was something very powerful going on with CBD and how it's working with the endocannabinoid system. And so, this dog, as she sits today, she still has a couple of these growths, but they're very small. And it's amazing to me how much of an improvement this dog has made. And so, like I said, I know there's a lot of people out there that'll lie to me, but my dog will never lie to me. And it's been amazing to see the transformation that this little dog has experienced. And so it was just another, I guess, a revelation to me that we're really on to something with CBD, right? And we're really on to what I believe is probably the greatest natural discovery from a supplementation standpoint, I think, of maybe my lifetime. And, and that's a big statement, Marcus, because, we live in a day and age where there's so much information and there's so many great studies about the human body and where we're going. In fact, they say right now that the knowledge of the human body is doubling about every 18 months, and how we treat the human body and how we supplement the human body. And I think that there's probably not anything out there that I have seen that's any more powerful than CBD, and that's why I'm in the space.
Wow, that's a great story, and the first time I've met little Dixie, so thanks for introducing us all. So, and how long ago was that when you first started, Dixie, on the CBD, Bob?
Well, I think she was on probably 4 or 5 months before we really started to notice that there was a difference. And it was not a small difference. It was a significant difference. I mean, imagine some of these lesions being the size of an American nickel.
Right.
And, you know, and most of them just going away completely, the vast majority of them. And with only a very few small, maybe the size of the tip of a pencil, that remained, 3 or 4 of those. And so, you know, I don't know. I would have expected the dog, as the dog got older, to get worse and worse with this condition. And this is not an unusual condition, by the way. But instead, she's made these dramatic improvements. Right now, does that translate over to humans? Well, I guess hard to know. But I can tell you that as you look at the studies related to some of these different issues, I think it's safe to say that that a lot of these are translating, over to human application.
Fantastic. And so why do you think, in all your research and what you've been seeing in the space the last 4 or 5 years, why do you think this one ingredient or one plant or extract in CBD is having such a wide variety of positive effects on people and also on animals as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, you know, every once in a while you hear about some sort of a miracle supplement that comes along, and there's just outrageous claims about it and how it fixes and heals everything. And so, I'm real skeptical when I hear those types of things, as I know that you are. And I think it really boils down to the fact that we're really starting to gain a very clear understanding of the endocannabinoid system and how the endocannabinoid system works and how important it is in terms of communication, how our cells are talking to each other. And I think there's been a lot of information over the years about how important it is for a healthy cell to communicate with a healthy cell. And that just makes sense. We also know what happens when sick cells communicate their message as well. And I think it really does boil down to, the way the endocannabinoid system kind of supercharges the way that these cells interact with one another, the way they talk to each other. And, and there's a lot of studies out there that are starting to come out now, and it really validates the position that we're taking. And one thing that I tell everybody is, I'm not prepared to make a lot of claims about the product. I certainly have not done any medical studies myself, but there's a lot of studies that are out there, and I point everybody to Google. You can Google CBD and just about every illness that's out there, and you're starting to see a lot of very credible studies that exist. And I encourage everybody to do their own homework, to study it out, and then make a determination for themselves. And I think in many cases you're going to find that that this is one of the great discoveries that we have. And incidentally, we call it a discovery because it's just now kind of legislatively starting to be accepted. But of course, this is something that's been around from the beginning of time, and it's been a supplement that's been used from the beginning of time. I'm grateful to see that these jurisdictions around the world are starting to come around and understand that, look, we're not selling, marijuana. We're not selling psychoactive drugs. We're selling extracts of industrial hemp that are so powerful. And it's good to see that there's this distinction that's starting to be made. But I think that's what it boils down to, Marcus. I think that when you have an ingredient that is so powerful that it dramatically improves the way that our cells, these healthy cells, begin to communicate and talk, is there anything in the body that can't be addressed? Is there really any issue that can't be managed? And the answer is no. And so, when you hear people talking about enhanced eyesight, and things that you just wouldn't even think were possible, you realize that so much of it is coming together and is realized through this incredible communication. And I do think that over the next number of years, we're going to see advanced studies about the endocannabinoid system, how important it is that we energize that system through ingredients like CBD.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember when we first started talking about your research development and also what you're doing in manufacturing with CBD. And I was quite interested when you talked about the advancements of technology and really how products have been evolving in the CBD space. So what have you seen at the moment as far as advanced technology, and where do you see the space of CBD going as far as those technologies?
Well, I can tell you that in all of the research that we've done, really the way that CBD interacts with the body comes down to one really important word, and that is absorption. And, there used to be a saying that all of us heard growing up, you are what you eat. I think that's probably commonly used even today. And I think the more that we learn about absorption, the more we realize that there's probably never been a time when that statement was more untrue, right? It turns out that we're not what we eat. And in many cases, that's probably a good thing. Our body has a way of kind of identifying toxins and dioxins and contaminants and kind of getting rid of those things. But we also know that in many cases, there are positive benefits that go unrealized because our body is simply not absorbing the nutrient. Now, CBD is a classic example of this, because we know that our bodies are roughly 70% water, and CBD happens to be an oil. Well, we know about oil and water, don't we? But we also know that our body has created some mechanisms to make sure that some of these lipid structures of these oils are absorbed. And our body will do that if it has, if everything is kind of lined up the way that it needs to be. And I think that when you start to really differentiate between those CBD products in the market that are truly effective and those that are not, what you're really talking about are specific mechanisms that are designed to improve absorption. Now, let me just give you a quick example. I think it's well understood right now that raw CBD is absorbed at a rate of about 6%. Imagine that, 6%. And, there are products out there that are selling for $129 for 1 ounce, $149 for 1 ounce. And I think, my goodness, that is a lot of money to spend on a product where maybe only 6% of it is absorbed. In fact, I've got a demonstration that I think shows this quite clearly. I've got 24 ounces of fluid here in this glass. And if we take 6% of the fluid in this glass and we pour it into another glass, I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that very clearly? Yeah. So that's just under 1.5 ounces, okay? And what that means is this is what you bought, right? And you spent $149 for that. And this is what you absorbed, right? And here's the interesting thing. Even though this is what you're absorbing, there's still incredible benefits that are coming about as a result of the CBD. Now, what happens if through technology, we're able to take a CBD product like this, 24 ounces in this case, and we're able to improve that absorption rate from 6% all the way up to, say, 85% or 90%, right? You're beginning to see a massive difference, not only in the value of the product, but in how that product works, the efficaciousness of the product. And so I think that it really comes down to understanding the science, understanding how important it is, first of all, that we nanosize this CBD. And there's a lot of products out there that are nanosized. It's something that I happen to believe in across the board for nutrition in most cases, not in all cases, but most. But nanosizing isn't enough. It's not enough. And one of the examples that I love to use is, when you were a kid and you had a couple of magnets and you took those magnets, and we know that if both of them were positively charged, they would just chase each other, wouldn't they? And you could never get them to connect until you did what? Until you flip that one over. And now, of course, they come together immediately. Well, what happens if we take those magnets and we make them smaller? It doesn't really matter. The principle's still the same, isn't it?
Right.
And we still have to be able to flip that over. And even if we make them minute, so small that we can't see them, they're still going to chase each other until we get that polarity kind of straightened out. And so we know that nano is important, but we know that nano is not the only key to making sure that we're getting absorption. And so, you know, the team really focused on a technology called MyCell. And, you know, MyCell is it probably the very best of all of the absorption technologies that we have. It's simply the way the body has of recognizing these lipid structures and enveloping these lipid structures and inviting them into the cell. And so, you know, we combine that with the nano structures and we end up with something very, very powerful. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, this is what we want to be purchasing and consuming. And this is something that we've got to get away from, right? And I would love to see the industry as a whole get away from this. I don't think that's a good cost value. Certainly there are issues related to efficacy as well.
Fantastic. Well, Bob, this has really been a great interview for people, and it's fantastic that you've been able to give up some of your time. And I actually had no idea that you'd prepared some props for this interview. You had your dog, you've got the glasses of fluid. Mate, I can't even hold a candle to your props, mate. So you should have warned me. Well, listen,
I need you to drink 6% of that orange juice and call it a day.
Yeah, no, well, thanks, mate. It is a candle, by the way.
It's a candle.
But is there any closing thoughts that you want to have if somebody's sitting there watching this interview and maybe they're involved in a CBD company already, which is fantastic. Maybe they're looking into CBD for the first time. I mean, what would your encouragement to these people be?
Well, first of all, I would tell you, you're in the right space. And I think it's only going to go up from here. You know, it's projected that within 24 months, this is an industry that'll go from $2 or $3 billion to over $22 billion. You definitely want to be in a space like that, especially if you're on a distribution side or a wholesaling side. And so I commend you for that. And for the reasons that we've discussed, you definitely have to do your homework. You know, there's a lot of CBD products out there. And frankly, I think there's some really good CBD products out there. But it's my belief that there are some that are better. You know, and it really just does come down to efficacy. It comes down to delivery. It obviously comes back to sourcing, the quality of the plant, the quality of the processing. And there's a lot to that, certainly. And, you know, because of our background and the experience that we have with over 30 years connecting with, you know, some of the top research scientists in the world, dealing with some of the top laboratories and manufacturers in the world, you really get a good sense of what makes a quality product. And so I feel good about, you know, the products that we're bringing to the marketplace and the products that we're creating. There are only very specific sciences that we will use. And it seems that every week somebody comes with kind of a new idea and we have to evaluate that. Certainly our goal is to immediately make obsolete the products that we're making. And we enjoy doing that.
Fantastic, Bob. Well, I know you're involved in right from the seed to the grow, right through to the manufacturing process. And I want to say, you know, thank you for holding the industry to a higher standard, making sure that these products and the verification of these products is really being held to a higher standard and putting things out for the end consumer, because that's really where the benefits come from.
Thanks, Marcus. Nice chatting with you today.
Thanks again.